The Khafra Pyramid Scans, 1960s to 2025. Back in the 1960s, an American physicist named Luis Alvarez, who'd worked under Oppenheimer on the Manhattan Project during World War II, was given special permission to perform a muon tomography test on Khafra's pyramid, the middle pyramid. Muon tomography is a technique that sends out cosmic ray muons, which can penetrate through hard surfaces, find voids, and generate either 2D or 3D images of the void as well as its volume. It sounds like science fiction, but this existed even in the 1960s. The process was slow, and after 3 years of scanning the pyramid from the bottom directly up, as well as the shallow bedrock surrounding the known chambers, Alvarez reported that no known voids had been detected in either the 19% of the pyramid they had scanned or the surrounding bedrock. Then, in 1977, the Stanford Research Institute returned to the Khafra Pyramid to instead scan straight into the bedrock, and it was here that they found a very strong signal of two chambers, one at a depth of around 69 feet and the other at around 108 feet. And each of these voids were considerably larger than the burial chamber itself. However, there is no known passageway between the corridors of Khafra's pyramid leading down into either of these two voids. But these are not misreads of the scan data, and the voids are certainly there. Now, one very possible, perhaps likely explanation is that these are part of the labyrinths and cave systems that run beneath the Giza plateau that connect back to the tombs of the northern cliffs that we discussed earlier. And I don't doubt that it may be possible that the Egyptians knew of other labyrinths and natural cave systems that could have connected to these very same caves beneath the Khafra pyramid. Okay, so now we get to it. I have received dozens of messages of you guys wanting me to respond to and shed some light on these new Khafra scans that have absolutely taken the internet by storm. But I had felt that there was enough people out there who had covered this topic pretty thoroughly, and I didn't have much to add, so I didn't want to capitalize on the interest and just make a video parroting what everybody else had to say. I didn't feel that making a video solely focused on these new SARS Khafra scans was entirely necessary, but it dawned on me that this may be a perfect opportunity to address this while also shedding light on the greater Giza plateau and the other features of the Giza plateau that are subterranean and below the pyramids. But these recent scans can't go without mentioning. So within the last couple of weeks, a team of Italian scientists released a paper claiming to have detected an incredibly massive network of shafts with two large structures at a depth of more than 2 kilometers below the Khafra pyramid. The technique behind the discovery is called synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography. To put it simply, this is a type of technology that can be found installed on both planes and satellites and sends down pulses towards the Earth. And it uses the returning signal to create either 2D or 3D images of its readings. But this is almost never used to detect anything below the surface, as its subsurface readings are incredibly inaccurate. Perhaps it could go through 10 feet of fine sand before it hits solid bedrock and ends completely. Now, this radar was directed down towards the Giza plateau, and the data received was interpreted as showing a massive structure below the Khafra pyramid. So in a nutshell, this is what happened, but the controversy is not necessarily over their findings, but instead of how they represented their findings. When news of the radar data emerged, it was accompanied by these art concept images depicting duplicate King's Chamber and relieving chamber structures, which are found in the Great Pyramid, not in the Khafra pyramid, superimposed onto the interior of Khafra's pyramid. They also depict more than 2 kilometer long vertical cylindrical shafts descending down into the Giza plateau below Khafra's pyramid with winding staircases leading to two 80-meter long chambers at the bottom, all of which are below Giza's water table. Aside from these problematic digital renderings, which may be dishonest at best, the main cause for concern here is that these new scans don't actually depict the interior chambers of Khafra's pyramid that we know exist, chambers that are in fact open to the public, let alone the two voids that I discussed earlier that were discovered back in the 1970s by the Stanford Research Institute. None of these known chambers and voids within Khafra's pyramid or below it are detected by this new 2025 scan. And for anybody questioning whether or not perhaps the 2025 scan is more accurate than the scan from the 60s and 70s, well, we know that those 60s and 70s scans were accurate because they tested the technology beforehand. They shot beams through the pyramid and they were able to detect all four corners of Khafre's pyramid, as well as the limestone casing covered peak on top of the pyramid. So they know that the technology works, and they knew that it was accurate. But such cross-examination for this new SARS scan data has not been done. So we really have no reason to immediately believe what this research team is proposing or any of the data that they have proposed thus far. And when these propositions are being paired with these evocative digital renderings that hardly seem to accurately represent the scan images they've released, it seems to me like a team who is hoping to make headlines and pull in large amounts of funds rather than a legitimate and credible scientific finding. And not to mention that they censored and removed Matt Simpson of Ancient Architects' comments regarding his concerns on their scan data on their Facebook page. Any professional scientific organization that is censoring, silencing, or blocking people who are raising questions about their research is automatically open to an incredible amount of skepticism. My interpretation, at best, is that these scans are picking up messy data of extensive underground caverns beneath Khafre's pyramid, of which the Egyptians may very well have known were there, or perhaps even accessed at one point in time, as there are many more shafts and tunnels beneath Giza that Egyptologists claim have never been fully explored, if you believe that. There are many much more credible scan teams out there, such as the Scan Pyramids Project. This is the team that verifiably discovered the void above the entrance to the Great Pyramid, as well as the large, probably duplicate Grand Gallery above Khufu's Grand Gallery. The Scan Pyramids Project is much better equipped, much more trustworthy, and has a much longer track record than these new SARS guys, and are much more equipped to be able to prove or disprove claims like this. What I'm really looking forward to is seeing what the Scan Pyramids Project discovers when they finally send a camera into the void above the Grand Gallery. What's ever found in there, if there's anything in there at all, whether it's hieroglyphs or some kind of artifact, whatever it is going to definitively prove who built the pyramids and perhaps even when. I truly think that the conversation, for the most part, could potentially end when this happens. It's not going to prove how they were built, but I think it is almost certainly going to close the case on who built the pyramids. There are so many more aspects to the Giza Plateau other than the three Great Pyramids. I sort of understood this prior to visiting Egypt, but nothing can replace that evocative, romantic, strong, visceral feeling of actually being there and seeing it for yourself. There's a difference between thinking you know and then knowing. You get an incomparable feel for the size, scale, and depth of the Giza Plateau, and the fact that it is riddled with shafts descending into the ground at every turn becomes cemented into your mind when you actually experience it. The allure of walking along the docks that were placed just outside the Valley Temple, where you can see that the ancient Nile would have run up to the Valley Temple. You would have, if you were a priest, or maybe even once a year during some kind of grand festival, a normal person would have had the privilege and the honor of stepping off of their riverboat onto the dock and walking into the Valley Temple with these huge cyclopean stones. Even just one stone can be the size of your average modern wall, going up 30 or 40 feet with these cross beams as the sun shoots down into the temple with this white calcite gleaming floor with these solid black diorite Khafre statues, people leaving offerings at, and walking out the back door of the Valley Temple and gazing over at the Sphinx. It's just incredibly evocative. All the while, beneath you is this huge web of interconnecting labyrinths and shaft tombs and tunnels and hallways beneath the ground. It is so endless. There's so much happening at the Giza Plateau other than the pyramids. When you've studied Egypt for long enough, the pyramids start to sort of fade away in the background as you sink your teeth into everything else that's around the pyramids, and gives context to who the people were that lived here at the footsteps of these pyramids, who the ancient Egyptians were.